Joe Cullooyah came up here, late last fall, and I met him for the first time, and he captured all of our hearts by telling some of the stories of some of the legends of the Salish up in this area. And we were all standing around the front door, and nobody wanted to leave, and we didn't want him to leave, so we asked him if he'd come back. Joe was raised in Arlee and went to school there in his childhood, and during the Depression he had to stop going to school and he started working. He worked farm work up there in the reservation, and then in the mid-40s he came down or up the Bitterroot and picked raspberries and strawberries and potatoes. Would do this through the summer months. Then he moved up back to Arlee area and worked for John Boyd. He worked for John Boyd here in the Bitterroot, isn't that right? And Jim Miles. And in 1947 worked at S&W Sawmill north of Darby. He's always done a lot of logging, a lot of sawmill work, and forestry practices. In 1951, he enlisted in the service and spent 7 years, did participate on the front line in Korea, and then was over in Germany for, 3 or 4 years. When he returned from the service, he continued in the logging business and logged out of Idaho, and then worked up in Libby for 13 years before he retired and moved back down to Arlee. Since then, he's been very active in the Preservation Committee and in the Cultural Committee. He's asked to speak and participate on the school level, to the young adult level, to the old timers. And I'm just so pleased to get to know Joe Cullooyah. Would you all help me welcome him?
Well, like what Alan said, I'm part of Hamilton. I worked here back about 60 years ago. Hamilton was a food-producing area. It produced a lot of food. After the Depression, when the war ended in 1945, Hamilton was booming. That's why I came up here. Well, a lot of tribal members came up here to work. There's a lot of work around here. In 1946 is when I...
Excuse me, Joe, I'm going to raise this up a little bit. It's just kind of limp. Thank you.
In 1946 was the last time I worked here. It's when the modern machinery started to come in. So I went to logging, sawmills, forestry, like Helen was saying. I'd done all that. Then when I went into the Army, I'm a Korean veteran. I spent 12 months on the front line in Korea, facing the North Koreans, Chinese. When I was leaving there, end of 1952, the Russians started to show up. So we got a few Russians there before I left. When I came back, and I was in the States for a couple of years, and I was in reserves. They stuck me in reserves for 7 years. So I just transferred back in, and I ended up in Fort Ord in California. That's where I made the top 10 soldiers. It's an honor to be picked for the top 10 out of 18,000. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. That's when I accomplished my goal. My mother got a letter from the post commander and also the division commander, informed her that what I did. And I was really happy for that. And when I left Fort Ord, I went to Europe like Helen was saying. I was there almost 3 years. I faced the Russians there for all that time I was there. While I was there, I watched the Summer Olympic Games in the Hitler Stadium. There was 18,000 people there, and the stadium was almost empty. And also when I was there, I pulled guard at the Spandau prison for the war criminals, all through August of 1956. That was an experience for me. I'll never forget that. And the other thing that I'd done while I was there, I become a member of the International Small Bore Rifle Team. So I was a member of the Small Bore Rifle Team for 2 years. It's an honor to be part of a team of sharpshooters of the world. So that's what I did while I was there. So that's part of my life. So I'm going to talk about name changes. I've been changed between here and Missoula before I get into the story. Missoula, how did it end up in Missoula? I don't know. And my people, they named it Insai. What does that mean, Insai? That means bull trouts. There's a lot of bull trouts between where the Reserve Street Bridge is to Milltown. That's why they named it Insai. There was a guy that built a little log cabin just west of where the university is. When you see that photo, there's two guys standing in front. And one guy's name is Missoula. And that's how they named it Missoula, so I don't know why. So when you see that, you'll see the name Missoula on there. So Lolo is another one. Come from the creation stories. See, the coyote, he tried to bring salmon over the hill from the west side of Lolo Peak. He brought the salmon up so far and he got frustrated. I don't know with what, I can't remember the story. So he didn't bring the salmon over the hill. He wanted to bring it into this valley. So that's why they named the Lolo Tumsumtli. Tumsumtli means has no salmon. That's why it's named that, because of coyote. And the other one, Sleeping Child. How did it end up on south of Hamilton? I don't know. Sleeping Child's supposed to be between Lolo and Florence. That also comes from the creation stories. Coyote found that baby sleeping on there's Little Rock Formation just south of Lolo. And there's a flat rock leaning against that little rock formation, shaped like a baby board. It's like it's got a baby in it. And that's why they call it Sleeping Child. How did it end up here, I don't know. Now the Sleeping Child, it's not Sleeping Child. Skalko is not Skalko. People that was trying to write that, they couldn't pronounce the word, they couldn't write it. So it becomes Skalko. And the name is really Skakho. What does Skakho mean? It means face of the mountain with trails crisscrossing it. That's what it means. And this hot springs out here's got the same name. The same name. 1947, last time the people that was working here, that's what he called it. Skakho Nayak. That's what you call Skalko hot springs now. So that's something, name's been changed. It's like Hamilton and Stevensville got the same name. They call it Tzadle. What does that mean, Tzadle? That means trees scattered out in the valley. That's what it means. When you come from Stevensville up this way, you see all them trees scattered all over out in the valley. That's why they named it that. When people from the reservation, when they come up this way, they say, I'm going to go to Tzadle. That doesn't mean they're going to go to Stevensville. That doesn't mean they're going to Hamilton. They're going to come to this area. So that's what Tzadle means. So that's some of the names have been changed, and I don't know why. Now I'll get into the story. We'll go back to Missoula, start from Missoula. Back in the 1800s, they used to have big camps right there in, between the university and the Clark Fork River. And on the north side of the river, between the river and the I-90, there was a big camp there. Why was there a big camp there? Because inside, bull trouts, good fishing there, and good hunting there. That was the crossroads for the Salish, Pomeroy, Cree, and the Nespers. They're always camped there together almost all year round. Some of them, they'd move around and go from campground to campground. Some of them would stay right there, right in Missoula. And some of them, they'd leave Missoula and they'd come into Lolo. There's a big campground there. Everybody calls it a Clark Fork, Lewis and Clark campground. That's where they camp. But that's a big question mark there. All my people that lived up here back in the 1800s, they never once talked about Lewis and Clark. All the stories that's been told, not one story. So that's why I was telling people, I don't want to disappoint you about Lewis and Clark. Because there's a lot of question marks. Like Helen's saying, I'm with the Preservation Culture Committee. Culture Committee is putting up history book together. It's supposed to be done by Thanksgiving. It's going to be in 4 volumes. And I'm one of the advisors on that. Tom Smith is our writer. He does the research. And he goes into Canada, Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, Washington, D.C. That's where he does his research. Whatever he finds, he brings it back and he puts it together. Last April, we finished 4 chapters. Took us 2 weeks to go through that, correcting the mistakes. And there wasn't too many mistakes because of Tom Smith's good job and his research. So Lewis and Clark is in that. There's only, I think, 20 pages. So like I said, there's still a lot of question marks in there. We've been following his trails, supposed to have been his trails. A lot of it don't make any sense. Where the trail is located, there's no way you would go through there if you're in your right mind. Just like up Clark Walker River, about 20 miles east of Missoula. Trail was up on a side hill. Why go up on a side hill into a nice valley? Why go through the woods? Didn't make any sense. And we figured it out. A lot of it was made up. Lewis and Clark never was up there. A lot of places he never was. He just came through here. One of our elders, well, she was older than I am. She was 92, I think. Last summer, 4th and 5th graders went and visited her, and she talked about Lewis and Clark. She told those kids that Lewis and Clark didn't come down here. She come through the mountains up here. Out of a Yellowstone Park, he just came through the mountains. Got to a low pass and he went down Idaho side. And Lewis and Clark Trail, what is Lewis and Clark Trail? Nothing more than a game trail, that's all it is. There's a lot of deer and elk in them days, that's why we just followed the game trail. So that's how Lewis and Clark is, I don't know. We don't know. We're trying to figure out a lot of things. Some of the stories, well, that's the way it sounds. There's little short stories about a certain area, and whoever writes it just fills it in. They just made up story, I guess you'd put it that way. So that's part of Lewis and Clark that we've been looking into for about, I don't know, about 2 months, 3 months, I guess. Now back to the story again. Now when they camp in Lolo, another thing that always comes up, teepee circles. What is a teepee circle? Everybody talks about that. No matter who I talk to, they always talk about teepee circles. What is it? It's like the story I'm telling you about. This time of the year, they go from campground to campground. They follow the migrating animals, deer and elk. When they put up their teepees, they outline it. They put their teepee pegs in the ground. When they move out, they leave their pegs in there Because when you come back, if you happen to come back, you can't drop a stake in the ground when the ground's frozen. That's why they leave the teepees, or they outline their teepee. When they come back and they just brush the snow away and their pegs is there, all they do is just put up their poles and slip the teepee back on the pegs. That's what the teepee circles are. And everybody's been talking about that. Oh, it's teepee circles over there. It's just like your home. What do you do when you build a home? You start with a foundation. And that's what that is. So when they camp there in Lolo and the migrating animals leave, then they'll get tired of fishing there, then they move out, they come this way. They go south. They go to their next campground, they do the same thing. Keep doing that till they go into Sula. That was one of the famous hunting grounds. There's one guy, one by elders, he died about 4 or 5 years ago. He was the last one to tell a story about around the medicine tree. So there was a couple, they'd come out of Stevensville and they were going south. They were going hunting back there, and about 2 feet of snow, and they were going south. And they met a couple, a white couple, that were going north. Oh, this all Indian, he couldn't understand English. So these two guys that were talking there, so the white couple, they come down, and so his wife asked him, what did that guy say to you? He says, oh, there's a lot of nest bursts up the canyon. Says, oh, I were lucky. Nest bursts, nest bursts and snow almost sounds the same. So that old guy thought it was talking about nest bursts. The guy was talking about snow. There were guys, a couple that were going up the canyon looking for the nest bursts. You couldn't find them. Sinua is nest bursts. Smek is snow. So it almost sounds the same. So they gave up looking for the nest bursts, so they went to their campground. They never did figure that out, what happened there. But anyway, that's why they're hunting there, and when they get through hunting there, they move on east. I don't know how far apart their campgrounds are. They never did say. But anyway, they go east and they go camping in another camping area. They keep doing that till they get to Skalkaho Pass. That's why they decide which direction to go. To come back into Stevensville, or they go to Anaconda. Depends on the snow, how much snow there is. Or they go down in Phillipsburg. Sometimes they come back into Stevensville, sometimes they just go along the edge of the woods into back towards Missoula. They get back in Missoula, and another season starts. Spring, they start digging Bitterroot. They get through the Bitterroot and the berries. I don't know how many different kind of berries they picked there. Then they all change around. The people that stayed there all winter, they'd move out, and there's always different people in that campground. Very few that stay there all year round. And that's when they started moving around, they go all different directions, find their roots or plants and other kinds of food that they gather. That's why they're always on the move. It's different season for different things, what food they gather. And when they tell the stories about what they do, it's really, people never stop. They always ask me, how come the horses never mention any hay? How does the horses eat? Well, they're used to it. They're used to traveling. Just like people, you get used to how you travel. Horses are like that. Horses can take care of themselves. That's why they travel up in the mountains quite a bit, and horses always never get hungry. No matter how much snow there is on the ground. So there's a lot of things that people, they talk about. It's, I don't know, it's the way they do things, they never seem like don't seem to get tired. Nobody complains they've been tired. They work from daylight to dark. Next morning, same thing. They don't say, well, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything. They keep working and keep working. So my mother was like that. She wasn't a very big woman, and when she died, she weighed 68 pounds. She never complained about how much she worked. She never tired, never work all day. Sometimes she gets up, sometimes she goes to bed. She never says, I'm tired, I don't want to get up in the morning. So that's why the people are back in the 1800s. Always on the go. Even kids, little kids, just like myself, I was like that. I enjoyed helping my parents. I enjoyed doing things for my parents, especially when they appreciate when they get a little help. So that's the way it is on the trail. We've done a lot of camping way up in the middle of nowhere. I enjoyed it. Because that's the way, I guess that's the way people did back in the 1800s. They enjoyed the way they were living. So that's why whenever I do anything for people, I enjoy it. People tell me I'm old, but I don't know. I don't feel old. Yeah, well, I was paralyzed 2 different times. First time in 1960, and then second time about 4 years ago. Then I had a stroke. But I always get up and go. Ain't no sense in me laying around. I guess I was just lucky, I guess. Yeah, I had my neck x-rayed. I was complaining about my throat. So a doctor x-rayed my throat. So he looked at the picture, says, "How'd you break your neck?" Well, I fell down last winter back in my yard. I didn't know when I broke my neck. I don't know. He says, "Well, it healed perfect." So I guess that's the way luck is. That is. I didn't get into storytelling until about 4 or 5 years ago. I told a little story. I thought it was just nothing. So somebody told me, "Well, I want you to come over and help us." I didn't know history was in a big demand. So that's how I got started in storytelling. Whenever I go and when I'm invited to storytelling, they ask me, "What are you going to talk about?" Well, whatever you want to talk about. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. I've been around a few times. Storytelling's fun. Especially if you go back to 1800s. Like I was talking about the history book, where we'll go out on field trips. We're up there about 2 miles south of Phillipsburg now. That's where we're at now, tracing our trails, the famous trails like Lewis and Clark. So this summer, I hope we can get out again and do some more field trips. There's about 12 of us that were doing this. Yeah, one of our elders, he just died the other day. Buried him Monday. And he was 92. So we lost a lot of information there. He was one of our biggest inspiration to all of us. I've known that guy all my life, his family. It's an honor to be part of that guy. He's a guy that you can talk anything to him about. Anything you want to know, he'll tell you about it. So it's really Hamilton, all between Lost Horse and Lolo. It's all food producing area. That's why a lot of people used to come up here and work. Just have big camps around here, berry pickers, farm workers, whatever. All come from the reservation. All the big families have all died. St. Vincent's family, he worked about 20 years here in Hamilton. He was a caretaker of the city dump. And that whole family's all gone. all except the grandchildren. The Dumont family, the Plant family. Some of the people come up here with no car, have their friends or their relatives bring them up here. By the time they go home, they have a car. Go downtown here in Hamilton, go to car lots. Say, I got a back row special. If it doesn't run, if you can fix it, you can have $15. All right, so they look at it. Well, most of them are mechanics, so they'd buy it and they'd tow it back to their camp and they'd work on their car. A few days later, they got their car going. So that's what they did, a lot of them. Some would come up on the wagon, take them a week from Arley to get here in Hamilton. So we're covering a lot of ground in our history book and in the stories here. Between here and Phillipsburg, between here and Drummond. From Drummond on north through Sela Lake and through Swan Valley back into Big Fork. We're covering all that. We're going over that. It's going to be in all our history book. That's an honor to be part of that. There's a lot of things happened in this around here back in the 1800s. Somewhere south of here, there was a cavalry. They come in from the south. And the tribe didn't know what was going on, so they surrounded them and killed them. I guess they were lost. When they talk about it, I figured they must have been lost. So they looked at everything, what they had in their pack horses. They didn't take nothing. They just put everything back on the pack horses, and they put all the bodies in a hole. Brought each horse in this hole and they killed the horse and they buried them there. Bodies and the horses. So they didn't know what they were up to there, because they were attacking all the Indians back in them days. So that was one of the stories that here in Hamilton, people always talking about it. And there were monsters out here in the river back in them days, back in the 1800s, when they had a flood. They found 2 dead ones out down there by Stevensville. And they buried them by the river. They didn't tell nobody about where they were buried. People wanted to be left alone. Don't want nobody to bother them. So that's some of the things that's a lot of history here. Maybe you don't know it, but there's a lot of history here. A lot of things, like I said, a lot of things happen here. Gotta rest my throat, but
You need a glass of water? We're gonna get another glass of water. I bet there are gonna be questions.
That's good to say, maybe we ask you some questions.
what?
Some questions, can we ask you some questions?
Yeah.
Would you repeat the question though, so they can hear it on the video? Okay.
I was thinking about Skalkaho Falls, up the Skalkaho Road, and that must be a very well-used trail to cross over into the Phillipsburg area, and so on. Were you ever involved with this talk about Skalkaho Falls? It's such a beautiful falls.
Yeah. I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Waterfall up on the Skalkaho Road, the sleeping, or is that sleeping? No, that's not the Skalkaho Road. That's a very lovely waterfall
Yeah.
coming down to the road. Is that a natural? That must be a natural waterfall.
That's a natural trail.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it seems like it's been well used for centuries, many centuries.
Yes.
It's not anything special in terms of your memory bank.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's one of the main passes also going to see the tribe here. There's so many families that get together. They go on a hunting trip over in, I guess, Wisconsin. They go on a buffalo hunting trip. There's so many families that gets together, and that's where they go through. They go through Skalko Pass and Anaconda and Butte. Then they go towards Whitehall. There's a little trading post just a few miles from Whitehall. It's where they buy all their supplies and they go on to.
You're speaking about the present
Yeah.
days, or are you speaking about the old days?
The old days?
Yeah. I mean, from what we could read, what we've read, there were annual buffalo hunts, and a lot of the Indians went over to collect buffaloes. I don't know if your group did. Was that true? Were you involved in any of the buffalo hunting?
Yeah.
I was also interested in the fact that you're Salish, and isn't that, you have some relatives that live on the coast, is that right? Out in Washington and Canada, in British Columbia and so on?
I got relatives all over.
Oh, I mean, do you ever get together?
Oh, yeah, my relatives,
And
yeah.
how's the language? Are there any language problems, differences?
Well, language, that comes from the creation stories, coyote stories.
Oh, tell us.
So the divide from the coast to the North Pole, that's where you divide the language, the weather. So the language over on the east side is completely different from the west side.
Oh,
And from the west side, from here to the coast, it's very little difference. And some in Canada there use the same language, all except it sounds different.
does that inhibit understanding? Does that, does that prevent people understanding each other? Or do they not need to use the same pronunciation?
Oh yeah, you can understand it, but you got to think I think that on Jeanette's tape, who's talking on that, it's got that different sound in there. So but I can understand him talking further you go west, it changes more and more. You get down to the coast, it's almost really hard to understand, but you can understand if you think. But get over on the other side of east here, don't understand it.
If they didn't understand, they always could use the sign language, right?
Sign language,
Yeah, the way they used to use the sign language.
that's different too.
That's different too.
Yeah, it's completely different. See here, when they're for half, you just Navajo there do that, so that's half.
There were no buffalo on the valley, was there? Well, your people were here. Buffalo were on the eastern side of the divide?
The buffaloes,
Buffalo.
yeah,
Where did you cross over from here to go buffalo hunting?
I having my ear problem here, so.
Oh, where did your people cross the divide to go to the eastern side of
Where do they cross?
Yes.
Either through Great Falls or through, like I was saying, through Whitehall,
Or through Whitehall.
yeah. See, when they go from here, it's almost in a straight line.
Then you crossed over by Bozeman and Livingston, huh?
You go straight into Wisconsin there. They make a big loop. I don't know what they gather out there. They gather a lot of stuff out there. When they leave here, about probably first part of April, depends on the snow up on a pass here. If the horses get through there, that's when they go on their hunting trip. And when they go in Wisconsin, they make their big loop. By the time they get back in Stevensville, it's almost ready to snow. They get back in a few days, few weeks, and start to snow. That's how big of a trip they make. Buffaloes and berries and roots and whatever they gather out there. They fish in Wisconsin too. We talk about, you call it Nk'Tenetku. Nk'Tenetku means big water. Doesn't say lake, doesn't say river, it just said big water.
Joe, were there any stories going back before the people here had horses? Going back several centuries, how was the life different before they had horses?
Well, like I was saying, they always on the move, so they had to do something to get food on your table, I guess you call it. Back in them days, you had to do something. If you don't, you starve. There's no farmers, no stores, no nothing.
How much of your food source was put up, preserved, and carried with you, and how much was, as you say, going through the territory and harvesting as the seasons change?
For a second here.
How much of your food source was preserved? How much did you have to put up? How many months did you count on living off preserved up food?
Depends on your family, how many you got in your family.
A short time or a long time, I guess.
Yeah.
Would you have to store enough food for 3 months or a week? I mean, or did you just gather from the land as you went?
Well, it depends on the season.
Well, I'm talking about throughout an entire year.
Oh. Well, there's a lot of them, they just go out and they gather food, and if your friend or your neighbor is short on food, well, you just pass it on. That's when they help each other back in them days. They look after each other. If What you don't have and they have, well, they give it to you.
Do you know any more? You mentioned that the Calvaries, the Indians killed them there. Do you know any more about that?
Just about 3-4 days ago, I woke up about towards the daylight. I don't know what's happened. My ears are plugged up, and my eyes was burning. My throat was aching, and that's why I'm having trouble hearing that.
Oh, okay. You mentioned about the Calvary here.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you know any more about that story?
that's all they talked about. That's all they said.
Do you know where it was at? What? It was close to Hamilton, or?
Yeah, it's close to Hamilton, but they didn't want to say exactly where it's at, so they didn't want anybody to bother them.
Could you tell us, many people may not know exactly why the Bitterroot were such an important, was an important plant. Could you tell us how the Bitterroot was used, and is it being used, do people still collect it?
Well, you don't realize just how good that food is for you.
Well, we'd like to know more, I'm sure.
That prevents sugar diabetes. It purifies your body completely. That's why you see some of the elders in their 90s, their eyes are perfect, teeth are perfect because of that. It's a good health food. People don't realize that. You eat a little bit of it each day, you'll stay healthy.
Do you eat it uncooked or cooked? It's dried, just dried fresh.
Yeah, well, back in the old days, it dried everything. It's better that way, and it's what they say.
I agree, would be.
But you eat it cooked too, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice that way.
Yeah. Bitterroot, moss. You ever eat moss?
No?
What you see hanging up on the trees?
Yes. Oh,
That's good for you too.
also, just as it comes from the tree, is that right? Dried, the dried,
No. A lot of work to it. It's really all the foods that, of what I'm talking about, these people gather, that's why they have so much energy. That's why they don't get tired. They don't keep it going because of food they're eating.
Joe, your mother fixed the black moss, I would presume, right?
Yeah.
How did she cook it?
You bake it. It's there's it's a trick to it. It becomes just like licorice when it's finished. Or like, well, it's like licorice, yeah. It's really good. Once you start eating it, you don't want to quit. You want to go out and get some more.
well, these days, with so many people around here, I think, wouldn't it be kind of dangerous to tell them all about these natural medicines? They could be cleaning out the valley here, or the whole,
Well, it's already cleaned out, so. Yeah,
This doesn't have a whole lot to do with the Bitterroot, but when I was growing up in Missoula, I lived on the south side of Missoula, down by the fairgrounds in that area.
Oh, I can't hear
And
you.
I used to go out quite a lot, well, every spring, and follow ladies from our league as they dug Bitterroot. And they would peel a milk, they would drive in the sun out on canvas or blankets. And I wondered, do you have a lot of Bitterroots in the Arlee area? Or were there ever very many in the Arlee area? Never, okay. I just wondered.
Just
I know
Missoula.
some of those drier hills were out in the meadows or plains or in the flat lands.
No, it's just,
Thanks, so.
Well, let's give Joe a break, and if you have any personal questions you'd like to ask him, let's let him rest a minute. Thank you, Joe. He told me to burn a bunch of
Oh.
sweetgrass this morning for a safe journey down, so I'm going to give him one to go home with, too.
Oh.
Thank you, Joe, very much.
good.